The air in the small roadside diner was thick with the smell of greasy bacon and burnt coffee. It was the kind of place where truckers stopped for a quick meal and locals lingered over their newspapers. Among the hum of conversation and the clatter of dishes, a young boy sat alone at the counter. He was scrawny, no older than 14, with a mop of curly hair and glasses slightly too big for his face. Dressed in an old hoodie and jeans, he didn't draw much attention until the two men walked in. They were bikers, towering and broad-shouldered, their leather jackets adorned with patches of skulls and eagles. One had a thick beard and tattoos snaking up his arms, while the other sported a shaved head and a scowl that seemed permanently etched onto his face. But before we dive into what happens next, I'd love to know, where are you tuning in from today? Drop a comment below. Their boots stomped heavily across the floor as they scanned the room, their presence instantly changing the atmosphere. Conversations hushed, and a few patrons glanced away nervously. The bikers moved toward the counter, taking seats 2 stools away from the boy. "Hey, kid," the bearded one said, his voice gravelly. "You lost or something? Don't see too many of your kind around here." The boy glanced at him, pushing his glasses up his nose. "I'm just waiting for my food," he replied quietly, his voice steady but soft. The bald biker chuckled, nudging his friend. "Check this out, Mark. Little guy's got guts. You sure you're in the right place, nerd? This isn't the library." Mark grinned, leaning closer to the boy. "Yeah, kid, how about you move along? We don't like scrawny punks ruining the vibe." The boy didn't move. Instead, he took a sip of his water, his expression calm. "I'm not bothering anyone," he said. The bearded biker's grin faded, replaced by a sneer. "What'd you just say?" The boy turned his head slightly, meeting Mark's gaze for the first time. His eyes were sharp, almost unnervingly so, and they held a quiet confidence that didn't match his appearance. "I said I'm not bothering anyone," the boy repeated. "But you are." The diner fell silent. Even the waitress, who had been pouring coffee a few tables away, froze mid-pour. Mark's face twisted in disbelief. "You got a smart mouth for someone who looks like they could get snapped in half," he said, his voice dripping with menace. The boy shrugged. "Looks can be deceiving." The bald biker slammed his hand down on the counter, causing the glasses to rattle. "That's it, kid. You need a lesson in respect." As he reached for the boy, something unexpected happened. The boy moved, fast. One moment he was sitting on the stool, and the next he was standing, his hand gripping the biker's wrist with a strength that didn't seem possible. The bald biker's face twisted in pain as he tried to pull away, but the boy held firm. "I wouldn't do that if I were you," the boy said, his voice eerily calm. Mark lunged forward, aiming to grab the boy from behind, but the boy anticipated the move. He twisted, using the bald biker's momentum to shove him into Mark, sending both men stumbling backward. "Who the hell are you?" Mark growled, regaining his balance. The boy adjusted his glasses, his expression unreadable. "Just a kid who doesn't like bullies." Mark and the bald biker charged at the same time, but the boy was ready. He ducked low, sweeping his leg in a move that sent Mark crashing to the ground. In the same motion, he spun and delivered a precise jab to the bald biker's solar plexus, leaving him gasping for air. The entire diner watched in stunned silence as the boy dismantled the two men with calculated precision. It wasn't wild flailing or brute strength, it was skill, precise, practiced, and efficient. When the dust settled, both bikers were sprawled on the floor, groaning in pain. The boy adjusted his hoodie and picked up his plate of pancakes, which the waitress had nervously placed on the counter during the chaos. "You should finish your meal somewhere else," the boy said, glancing down at the bikers. "This place is for people who know how to behave." With that, he walked toward a corner booth, as if nothing had happened. The waitress finally found her voice. "Kid, what are you?" she asked, her tone a mix of awe and disbelief. The boy looked over his shoulder, a small smile playing on his lips. "Just someone who believes people should be treated with respect." As he sat down to eat his pancakes, the bikers scrambled to their feet, muttering curses under their breath as they stumbled out of the diner, their bravado shattered. The patrons began to murmur, and a few even applauded quietly. The boy didn't acknowledge them. He just ate his pancakes, savoring each bite, while the waitress poured him a fresh cup of coffee on the house. The legend of the young boy who took down 2 bikers with ease would spread throughout the town, growing more exaggerated with each retelling. But for the boy, it was just another day of standing up for himself and reminding the world that strength doesn't always come in the form you expect. As the boy quietly finished his pancakes, the diner began to buzz with whispered conversations. People exchanged glances, wondering who this mysterious teenager could possibly be. Some speculated he was a martial arts prodigy, while others thought he might be the child of a secret military operative. Whatever the truth was, they all agreed on one thing: they'd just witnessed something extraordinary. The waitress, a middle-aged woman named Marcy, finally worked up the courage to approach him. "Hey, kid," she said softly, sliding the bill across the table. "That was, well, impressive doesn't even cover it. Are you sure you're okay?" The boy looked up at her and smiled politely. "I'm fine, thank you. And don't worry about the mess, they won't be back." Marcy hesitated, then leaned in closer, lowering her voice. "You've got a lot of people curious about you, including me. What's your name?" He hesitated for a moment, as if deciding how much to reveal. Finally, he said, "Eli, just Eli." "Okay, just Eli," she said with a small smile. "Do you do this kind of thing often? Taking down grown men like it's nothing?" Eli chuckled softly, shaking his head. "Not if I can help it. But sometimes people like them need a reminder that the world isn't theirs to bully." Before Marcy could press further, the sound of police sirens echoed in the distance, growing louder by the second. Someone must have called them during the commotion. Eli's face darkened slightly. "I should go," he said, standing up and pulling a few crumpled bills from his pocket to pay for his meal. Marcy reached out to stop him. "You don't have to leave. You didn't do anything wrong. The cops need to know those guys started it." Eli shook his head. "I appreciate that, but it's better if I'm not here when they arrive. Thanks for the pancakes." Before she could argue, Eli slipped out of the booth and headed for the back exit, moving with a quiet, cat-like agility that made him seem even more mysterious. By the time the police arrived and began questioning the patrons, Eli was long gone, leaving only a lingering sense of awe in his wake. Out in the alley behind the diner, Eli adjusted his hoodie and pulled a small phone from his pocket. He dialed a number and waited for the line to pick up. "It's done," he said quietly when someone answered. "I hand it." The voice on the other end was calm but firm. "Eli, you need to be careful. We can't afford for you to draw too much attention to yourself." "I know," Eli replied, "but they were hurting people. I couldn't just sit there and do nothing." There was a pause before the voice responded. "You have a good heart, kid. Just don't forget, you're not like everyone else. And that's both a gift and a responsibility." Eli sighed, running a hand through his curly hair. "I won't forget." As he hung up and began walking down the quiet street, his mind drifted to the life he'd left behind, the intense training, the secret organization that had taken him in when no one else would, the skills they'd taught him to use only in the direst of circumstances. He didn't know what the future held, but one thing was clear. As long as there were people like those bikers in the world, he wouldn't stay hidden forever. Some fights, he knew, were worth stepping into the light for, even if it meant revealing just a little of who he really was. For now, though, Eli would disappear into the crowd, just a kid with a hoodie and glasses, blending into the world around him. But those who had seen him that day would never forget the quiet boy who had stood up to 2 bullies, and won. Drop a comment if you enjoyed this story. It doesn't cost you anything, and you'll make me very happy. Thank you, and I look forward to your like.